I have one more minute until I shall open the meeting, but I wanted to advise everyone that we are being live streamed and video recorded. Okay, welcome everyone to our Committee of Adjustment hearing this afternoon, and it looks like the start of fall. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will be following the agenda that's been provided. And our first call is we did receive some regrets. Member Jeff Doomering is unable to attend today. And I'll ask our Larry Wheeler to ask if there was any other withdrawal or matters before the committee.
No, there wasn't, Madam Chairperson.
And any changes to the hearing?
No changes, thank you.
Perfect. So at this time, I'll ask all committee members, does anyone have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Member Sheik?
I don't have a pecuniary interest, but I just want to make it note that my sister and brother-in-law have property opposite on the road, according to application A2023-12.
Thank you. So noted. That moves us into our minutes from our previous meeting. If I can have a committee member first, Member Stanners. Second, Member Sheik. So I have a recommendation that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton of Committee Adjustment hearing held on July the 12th, 2023 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Did any committee member have notice any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? This motion is carried. Were there any matters arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Perfect. That brings us into our hearings. We have 3 today. I'd like to start off just with some general housekeeping. We have a podium in the middle and there is a microphone. So when you are called upon, whether you're an applicant here to speak to one of your hearings, or you're a member of the general public and would like to speak, you can go up, state your name, you will press the red button, and then it will be on speaker for everyone. You'll address to the chair, myself, Lori Woodham, and then I'll redirect to either our planner or whoever can answer the question the best. And we will be following the applications that's stated in our agenda. And please note that each hearing that we have before us today for the Committee of Adjustment is based on all information that has been provided to the committee members. The committee shall make this decision based on the 4 tests, and no precedent shall be set. And the 4 tests will be read after each hearing. So I'd like to start and open in hearing number A023-10. The location of the subject property is legally described as Lot 10, Concession 6, Maryborough, and is municipally known as 8338 Concession 6. The purpose and effect of the variance application is to provide relief for the minimum distance separation, MDS2, from a Type A land use. The applicants are proposing to construct a new covered solid manure storage building and rebuild/replace an existing barn. The proposal requires relief from the nearest neighbor's dwelling. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. So at this time, I'd like to call upon our Secretary Treasurer regarding notifications and comments received to date, Mr. Larry Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Staff can confirm that property owners and agencies were provided with the required notice on August 28th. Proper postings were completed September 1st. Wellington County Planner comments are in the agenda package. There were ratepayer comments received. They are in the agenda package too, and there were no concerns expressed by township staff.
Thank you. So moving on to our township planning comments, I'll ask our township planner, Linda Redmond, for her comments.
Thank you, Chair. So there's not much more to add other than the lands are designated prime agriculture and zoned agriculture. And the application is to permit a new manure storage building as well as replace an existing barn. They don't meet the setback to the nearest neighbor to the southeast, I guess. And so they're asking for relief of 32 and 33 meters, or just over 100 feet to that dwelling from these two facilities on the property.
Thank you. So are there any owners present today? Okay, so I have Mr. Jeff Bannerman.
Yes.
Okay, would you like to speak to this application?
Yes, I can.
Thank
I
you.
met with the,
Oh, sorry, if you wouldn't mind just pressing your button.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, with me, I have Derek Byer, who is one of the farm managers at the operation. And if there's anything that I can't address, then he can certainly help us out on some of those aspects. So whether you got the screenshot of the operation, if you wanted to bring that up. Right there, that one there probably is good enough. The yellow building there is where we anticipate putting that there. The first two barns 31 and 32, are the ones in question. The first one, barn 32, they're going to change the structures within the barn. 31, yeah, put new cages in it. And so that manure then has to come out, and they want to put it into contained manure storage. Right now, the manure is moved from those barns by a trailer. So it's dumped outside, and then it's moved by a trailer to some other storages. And then barn 32, the second one that was highlighted in green, is due to be replaced as it's in tougher shape and built on the same footprint, going no bigger, but linking that barn with the proposed new manure storage, just so that operation flows conveniently. Initially, they had proposed to go a lot closer to the neighbor, but we've changed it so that it will work with the minimum amount of effect to the MDS calculations. Any questions?
Okay, we'll go on through and follow the agenda. So
Sure.
Thank you for your comments now. Yeah. So are there anyone else attending wishing to speak to the proposal? Please approach the mic, state your name and your address, and then your questions.
Chair Lori. My name's Al Hebert, President CEO of Rhoda Holsteins, across the street from proposed operation. I guess our biggest question is, they build this, it gets closer to our house. We want to build a new house. Does that affect us in any way down the road for building on our property?
Thank you, Al. I'll direct this question to our planner, Linda Redmond. If you wouldn't mind. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. May I ask the delegation a question?
Yes.
How big is your farm across the road?
As in like land wise?
Yeah,
200 acres.
okay. So MDS 1 is applicable to the location of a house when a new house is being constructed. on a property that's greater than 4 hectares. So MDS 1 would be applicable. However, in cases of parcels that are this large, there's usually an adequate space outside of the MDS arc from the surrounding livestock facilities that can accommodate a house and facilities. But regardless of this addition, there would be a requirement to do MDS for all the surrounding livestock facilities, and that new house would have to be situated outside of that arc, or they could come in for a variance.
So did that answer your question?
I don't know. It's a lot of jumble.
So basically, the MDS rules has to be followed by everyone. So just as the applicants here today are requesting a variance because their arc is going to the closest neighbor. If let's say it proceeded and went up down the road, yes, if you wanted to build a new house, you also would have to go that circle, the MDS 1. And if these new barns fell within it, you too may have to come to a committee adjustment.
Yeah, so then our concern is warranted and we'd rather not see this proposal go through. Having said that, we've built manure storages too. On farms, you can move them to places where you do not affect your neighbors. That's pretty much what I have to say, I guess.
Thank you for your comments. So as owner applicants, do you have any comments back that you would like to do for this?
Yes, we ran the MDS calculations and it's one set number. The only property that it did affect was the neighbor to the east, Mr. Hubert's property. The arc was to build this new storage was outside of his arc to build an MDS 2 calculation and to build the storage. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to call upon our committee members for any questions they may have for the planning department, the applicants. I'll start to my far right, Member Stanners.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I looking at these, the 2 barns, like barn 31 and 32, like the number of birds in each barn, I understand is going to increase substantially by change of operation, but they are an existing barn. But the manure pit, my only concern is it looks like it's only for cost reasons. You're just trying to go straight out, done, set your pump there and that's it, right? Could it not be moved farther to the west without a lot of grief? The use would be out of that arc?
Which way is the west?
Oh, to the left there somewhat.
So
You'd be going closer to your laneway, right, or something? You would be getting farther out of the arc.
north there, so west would be farther.
No, I'm going, go up on an angle because that whole picture's,
Skewed.
it's weird the way it's set on the property, but that's okay. In line with your laneway, getting it closer to your main laneway that comes in onto the property. Or closer towards the existing house that's there, whatever you want to call it, right?
So with the stable cleaners, like they run underground, right, in one direction.
Right.
So the idea is to have it go from barn 32 to barn 31, right into a covered storage. In order to do that, we would have to run, if it was to get out of that arc, it would, like, we'd have them zigzagging everywhere, which I don't even know if it'd really be possible to do.
It's not liquid.
Yeah, it's solid manure. It's not liquid. So it's just going into like a covered storage there, right? Just dry litter. Sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but essentially, like, we're not moving it with a tractor and putting it anywhere. It just runs right from the edge of the barn on a 90-degree angle out of the barn into a storage.
And so you're saying it's solid manure, but you're trying to tell me there's no other way than to move it just with a stable cleaner? Like, there is augers that will will angle stuff or do anything, right? Like, I'm just looking at trying to get it away from the neighbor's house, because his big concern is that it's closer, and, you know, production numbers have increased also on this farm substantially, right? Like, we got to eat eggs, I guarantee you that, and I see nothing wrong with it, but I'd like to be satisfied that there's no other option of moving the manure from barn 31 and 32. I understand what you're saying, straight, like another pit to change the angle on a stable cleaner. Like, it's amazing what is out there these days, right? I just looking at down the road that it doesn't become an issue, because, you know, there is quite a difference in manure from 20,000 birds to 54,000, right?
Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the thing we would worry about then is just how it would actually work for us in terms of moving the manure that distance, right? Like, we worry in the winter already, if we have any issues, it'll freeze underground. So we ideally like to have it just one smooth transfer and not have to extend it farther than it needs to go.
Okay, and then, so this will be totally enclosed in this manure yard? And another question, yeah, whenever you haul manure out of there, will you be coming out of which side of the barn? Like, you know, as whenever that manure gets moved, that's when you get fumes from it and everything else. And the wind's blowing the right way, your neighbor might really have a bad day, right? Even though he's born and raised on a farm. Like, is there a different option of unloading that manure pit on the one side to the other side, just to alleviate some of the issues that this your next door neighbor, because you just all want to get along at the end of the day, right? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it could be unloaded from either side. It doesn't really matter. Like, in terms of where the stable cleaner will shoot in, that would be the side that's closest. But whenever we have a contractor that hauls manure for us, we have the flexibility to have them haul from either side. It doesn't really matter to us, whatever works for everyone. Is that what the proposal? Yeah, it doesn't really matter to us personally, so.
Yeah, I know it's a small thing, moving a door from one side to the other thing, like before construction, moving it afterwards, but I'm just looking at, if, to be a good neighbor, if you kind of unloaded the manure out of the one side instead of the other side, because every bucket full that comes out of there, you know, there's bits of slop and there is wind and there's everything else, right? And it would just, we got to eat eggs, I know that, but I just trying to make it as easy as we can on a neighbor, right? It's like, I know my manure yard isn't at the front of my barn, but it's just a hobby, but there is other ones that kind of, to hide that operation, that you don't see as much of it and you don't get as much drift of aromas from the barn, right? Thank you.
So, like, we were hoping to have it on the back side. Which side are you suggesting? And I'm a little confused. Okay, I mean, that's something we could look at if that's what everyone would be okay with.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Member Kiomo?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I guess just sort of following up on what Bob had asked you, just to be clear then. So if instead of having it exit on the west side, you're saying you could move the whole sort of machine or whatever you call that, and the manure storage structure further over to the west? And no.
Sorry. For practical use, you really can't move it, because the cages are in there, the manure's coming from the west to the east in the barns, just the way the cages are designed and where they're laid out. And then it'll drop into the stable cleaner and straight out into the barn. So you really can't move it down any farther. That's just, yeah, asking for more issues in the long run.
I guess I still have the same concern as was noted from the county planner as far as and our planner around the whole idea of not kind of exceeding or reducing that location to be within the area where you do have a neighbor that's saying that they would be impacted by it. They're concerned about them falling within that arc. And so I'd be much happier to see it placed in a location in which you'd be able to fall outside of that arc so that it there is no exception that's made here. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Member Sheik.
Okay, I have a few questions, Your Chair, for the applicant. So this replacement barn, number 32, are you going to come down, like, is barn 31 also scheduled to be replaced as well? It's not. Okay. So if I understand, the manure to leave from the barn to this proposed yellow structure on the map, it's underground? And so where is the manure storage from barn 31 going currently? It's proposed to go to the same new structure. So both barns currently you're emptying with tractor and wagon and moving it to a different location. Is that correct? So what is the proposed, like I see that you have, I'm just looking at how the rest of your operation, you have the manure storage between the barns. So I'm wondering why this manure storage you're putting out in front and not between barn 31 and 32.
So we had moved it back that way because initially we wanted to put it in the middle, but out, because the two barns right now, they're too close together to put an actual manure shed for the amount of birds that'll be in there to hold the amount of manure. So initially we wanted to have it out, but then it was going to be too close to the neighbors on the east side. So then that's why we proposed to push it back onto that side.
Through you, Chair.
Yes.
So is there any way that you could reconstruct the size of the manure storage so that it would fit between the two barns and still be usable?
The 1 feet tank for barn 32, we need a lane to get back there, but it wouldn't be possible with the in between the barns there to have a manure shed that would hold 240 days or 365 days worth of manure for those birds.
So as member Stanners mentioned, then would it be possible if you're reconstructing barn 32, would you not be able to make the manure underground thing go wherever, that you couldn't actually move the proposed structure closer to the laneway of the land?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. You're saying to move barn 32 entirely to a different location?
To move the building storage, the proposed building storage, if you moved it closer to the laneway, if you're building a new barn anyway, can you not determine where the wastage of the manure is leaving the barn to go to the structure?
So barn 32, we're reusing the same footprint. Like essentially all that's getting done is we're lifting the height of the barn to make the ceilings taller because we want to put in an aviary system there, which is free run birds. So we're not actually demolishing the barn and moving it anywhere. We want to keep the existing footprint for both barns and then just have one smooth transfer of the manure.
Okay, so if your barn, you're just lifting it, and number 31, is it already lifted, ready for, is it going to have the same kind of birds in it?
Barn 31 is going to be an enriched system, which is newer style cages that are replacing the old school conventional cages. And we can't have the manure come out the opposite end because those 4 barns are connected by a hallway that has a conveyor that transfers all the eggs to one central room where they're packed, if that was the question.
So, but currently neither barn has the manure removal because you are doing it with tractor. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now the manure is poured into small wagons outside because we only have 10,000 birds in each barn, and then those wagons are taken and dumped into different manure storage.
Sorry for all the questions. I just want to make sure I understand it. So even though you are doing the replacement and you're lifting this barn up, you are still going to have to construct the manure store, like the manure renewal or the manure removal within that structure, correct?
Yes,
And so then I'm asking, why can't it, if you, and then you're going to attach it or run through barn 31, correct?
yes.
So then I'm wondering, why does it have to be at the end of the barn? Why can't it, whoops, sorry, why can't it be more like central? So that way, when it's coming out of the barn, you could move the proposed structure further out of the MDS circle towards, like, I call that west, but some people might call it north. So what, I'm just asking, like, why can't we move the structure? If the manure removal is leaving the barn at the end of the barn, why can't, if we're doing reconstruction, why can't you move the manure more central and then move the barn or the manure storage area to the west so that it might take it out of the MDS requirement?
To get out of the MDS requirement, the stable cleaner would be enormous that we would worry about having, like, the issues that we would have in terms of maintenance and even being able to successfully get the manure out of the barn. We have some of our other barns on our other property would be a much shorter stable cleaner that we're proposing, and we have a lot of issues with those ones as well. So we ideally just want to keep it somewhere that it's still effective for us, but like feasible in terms of operating as well.
So what if you move the structure between barn 32 and 33? Is there feed, like, could you move it between those two barns and bring the manure from barn 31 and 32 and bring it back the other way?
Barn 33, the birds are loaded into the barn from that back. There's a giant pad there. And then also in between barn 32 and 33 is a pasture for organic chickens that we still need to be able to access.
No further questions, your chair.
Okay. Lots of great questions. I'll put it out to my committee members. How are you feeling? I have some concerns and trying to locate this within the ARC itself. I have two options. I could ask for a deferral to see if perhaps we could go back to the drawing board and come up with a solution, or I can call the question. I'm looking for some guidance from my members. Oh, okay, I will ask my planner, Linda Redmond.
I would just like to add, maybe to help this along, it sounds like there's some still more questions and clarification with respect to the way it functions and how it works and what can work and not work. So if the committee is thinking about a deferral, that might give the opportunity for those questions to be more formally answered for you.
Right.
And make you feel a little more comfortable with it. Also, they are asking for two variances for two separate buildings. So I want to make sure the committee is aware of that in their decision, if one variance is acceptable and one isn't, that
Both.
you want to separate them.
Okay. I also would like to request, if we do proceed with a deferral, that we can also take a look at the adjacent farm, Mr. Hubert's. And if it's possible to have him give the opportunity to be able to do his MDS 1 ARC, even if it's blue sky and he has no plans of building tomorrow, but that he would have the ability to see if this definitely is going to affect him or not going to affect him. So
I can move for a deferral.
thank you. Moved by member Sheik. Can I have a seconder? Member Kiomo. Okay, I have a motion before us to defer hearing number AO 23-110 until our further hearing, which I do believe we have one is scheduled in October. So that you will be able to contact our planning department, perhaps work out some more. I think you've heard the questions and concerns that the committee has. And again, as our planner had pointed out, since there is 2 variances attached to this, if I did call the question and it was defeated, both would be defeated. So I think the best solution will be a deferral at this time. So thank you for attending. Oh, did I call the question? Sorry. Let me call the question. All those in favor of a deferral? All those against? That motion is carried. So that concludes our meeting for application AO 20310. Again, thank you for attending. So that brings us into our agenda item number 5.2, which is hearing number A 203-11. The location of the subject property is legally described as West Part Lot 5, Concession 6, Maryborough, and is municipally known as 8558 Concession 6. The purpose and effect of the variance application is to provide relief for the maximum lot coverage for an additional residential unit detached, an ARU. The applicant is proposing to construct an approximate 74 square meter or 800 square foot ARU and attach it to the existing accessory structure. The current accessory structure is 252.6 square meter or 2,720 square feet in size, which exceeds the lot coverage permitted for an accessory structure on this property. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. So at this time, I'll call upon our statement from our Secretary Treasurer regarding notifications and comments received to date, Mr. Larry Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Staff can confirm that property owners and agencies were provided with required notice on August 28th. There were no concerns expressed by township staff. Proper postings were completed September 1st, and County of Wellington planner comments are in the agenda package. Ratepayer comments have been received and are also included in the agenda package. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to our township planning comments. We'll ask Linda Redmond.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a request to build an ARU, a detached ARU, which is a permitted use in our zoning bylaw for residential, single-family residential properties. And normally they'd be, they're allowed as of right. The criteria, as I've attached to my report, is that those detached ARUs have to follow the requirements for accessory structures. So lot coverage, height, all those things have to be dealt with through section 6.1 as accessory structures. So having said that, the property had an existing accessory structure on it that did exceed the allowable size for that lot. It's an old existing structure, probably was constructed before the bylaw was even around. So we consider it what we call legal non-conforming, but because they want to add this unit onto that structure, then they do need relief for the lot coverage of that. So that's what they're here to do. So it is relief to allow a difference of 140 square meters. So we have no concerns with the request. We think this is a great opportunity to provide additional housing, affordable housing, attainable housing in the rural area.
Thank you. I know Debbie's here. So did you want to speak now or you want to just answer any questions if we may have some for you? Okay, sounds good. So this time is there any other one attending that wishes to speak to this? Nope. Okay, so at this time, I'll start with committee members. I'll start to my far left, Member Sheik.
Through you, Chair, I have a question for Debbie. Is there any other accessory buildings on this property other than the detached shed?
No, just the detached shed.
If, so may I ask what the structure is behind the shed, the accessory shed?
Perhaps through you, Planner Linda Redmond, you have an answer?
Yeah, I did a site visit. That's an old aerial map, and just for the benefit of the applicant, if you turn behind you and you look up at the screen, you'll see, it looks like it maybe was a trailer or a sea can at one point. It's not there. When I was out for the site visit, there was nothing there. So that's an old aerial map.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure there was no other accessory buildings.
Thank you. Member Keomo?
Yeah, I don't have any difficulties with this. I think it, again, like staff say, it's a really good opportunity to allow people to get some affordable housing in rural areas. I guess the one question I do have though is just the size of this ARU, just based on the diagram that's here. It shows it as being a 36 by 40 accessory dwelling. And that would be quite a bit more than 800 square feet. I don't know if that's an issue or if that's just an error in the drawing or what. I'm just confused by it, that's all.
Yes, there's an extension on the existing shed for a garage. And then the ARU is going to drop down and be my 800 square feet.
Okay, that explains it. So 20 by 40 is the granny flat, garage in between. Thank you.
Member Stanners?
Thank you, Chair. A question I think, well, personally, I really don't have a problem with this. I think there'll be more of these, but I have a question just for our planner. When this ARU becomes attached to the shed, does the whole thing become residential? And will that whole shed, instead of being taxed as a shed, will it be taxed as part of a residential unit? Like, I know every unit is, every application is different, but I just don't want it that the applicant gets a great big surprise that the taxation people look at, well, this is all one structure, and if part of it's residential, it's all residential. It could really have a huge impact on a tax bill at tax time. So hopefully the planner has some kind of, can answer it for me. Thank you.
I can't answer it for you. Sorry, I don't know. The first question about whether the whole thing can become residential, like literally, do you mean, can they expand into that building? Or does the whole building then become taxed as residential?
Well, I am thinking like, I can see the new ARU being taxed as residential. But if an ARU or even any residential unit has 3, 4, 5 car garage on the side of it, that also gets taxed at the same rate as a residential rate. So my concern is that the applicant doesn't all of a sudden get, when they come around and the people that set all these tax rates and that, whenever they look at it, being as it's attached to a residence, it would all be as a residential rate. Like we've had people before, and we've told them, I think that they could put on 5,000 square feet on the end of a house and use it as whatever. And it would be taxed at a residential rate, that it's a lot more economical to have it at a shed. So my question, should this unit be separated, whether it even takes a breezeway or something to separate it from the shed, just to save the applicant a lot of tax dollars down the road? It's something I don't know, but it's just a question I'm asking. Thank you.
And I don't know. I don't know what how the taxes are dealt with for these ARUs. Sorry.
Yes.
Um,
Debbie?
So I'm, oh.
The only reason that I'm attaching it to the shed instead of the existing house is to avoid the 14 steps to get up into the house at any given time. This other shed is down on the level, and that's the reason why.
Member Sheik?
So just further to what member Dennis said was about the garage. The question is to the planner, is when you figured out the variance for the maximum floor area, did that include not just the residential area, but the garage area as well?
Thank you, Peg. That's what I wanted to add is the variance requested is different than what is shown on the map there. So I utilized, I think the application, which had a smaller accessory structure size. So when you add this all together, the relief required is greater than what I've put in my report.
Okay.
So the committee should maybe amend the variance before you vote. So when I did a quick calculation, based on the criteria shown on this page, I've got a total floor area of 4,160 square feet. And my report has it at 3,515.49. Because I believe I thought the shed was 2,000 square feet, because I'm pretty sure that's what it says in the application, but don't quote me on that. So, sorry, that's what's allowed is 2,000 square feet. So, I'm suggesting that we might want to amend that.
Or does the committee member, I appreciate the question that member Stanners has. And I want full well the applicant to understand perhaps consequences of what your tax bill may or may not be. I would love to be able to answer that question for you. And unfortunately, we don't have resources here today. I'm entertaining a motion for deferral of this one also, so that we can run the numbers properly, put them through, and also have clarification perhaps from our tax department or whomever at Mapleton Township that could give us this answer to ensure that the residential she's not going to be taxed on the full thing. Member Stanners, do you want to?
Yes.
You move it first, seconded? Member Sheik? I'll call the question. All those in favor of deferral of application AO 203-11? All in favor? Opposed? This is deferral to our next meeting. Sorry. So that concludes our hearing. AO 2023-11. Moves us on to agenda package 5.2.10. Sorry. 5.3, hearing application is A 2023-12. The location of the subject property is legally described as West Part Lot 13 and 14, Concession 10, Maryborough, municipally known as 8208 Wellington Road 8. The purpose and effect of the variance application is to provide relief. Relief from, and then it goes into nowhere. Do you have it on the? There it is. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the required location of a second dwelling on a farm. The applicants are proposing to construct a second dwelling and would like to situate it greater than 61 meters or 200 feet from the existing dwelling on their property. The zoning provisions require the second dwelling to be located within the farm cluster. The variance may also include MDS1 setback reductions from surrounding livestock facilities. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. So at this time, I'll call upon our Secretary and Treasurer regarding notifications and comments received to date.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Staff can confirm that property owners and agencies were provided with the required notice on August 28th. There were no concerns expressed by township staff. Proper postings were completed September 1st. County of Wellington planner comments are in the agenda package, and there were no ratepayer comments received prior to creation of the agenda. Thank you.
At this time, we'll call upon our Township Planner, Linda Redmond.
Thank you, Chair. This property is a farm and it is zoned agriculture. There is some natural environment at the very back end of the property. It's not impacted by this development at all. The applicant would like to build a second dwelling on the property. The current dwelling is set quite far back from the road at the very rear of the property, essentially. And they would like to construct the house closer to the road, closer to the newer shop that's located at the front of the property. So as you can see from my comments, this type of second dwelling is different than the ARU provisions. The ARU provisions are applied to smaller parcels, urban parcels, parcels that permit residential and semis and townhouses. So the intent of those, the ARU policies are directed more to those types of residential areas. On farm properties, the bylaw does allow for a second residence as of right on a farm with criteria. And the criteria is that it is located within the farm cluster. And the intent of that is that it's utilizing the same driveway, it's utilizing the same area of the farm. It's not taking production farm land out of production by being located elsewhere that would do that. It's close to the farming operation. The intent is that it's generally farm help that perhaps might be living there. So like that was the original intent behind the second dwellings. That's not necessarily the intent anymore, but the initial intent when those policies first came in was that it was for farm help. We don't use that criteria any longer because we recognize that, you know, accommodating family members or other people in a second dwelling can be for farm help, but also can be for succession planning or, you know, other reasons, right? So we don't get too caught up in who's living there. But the intent is that it is located within the farm cluster for those reasons. And also, the other reason is that it's to avoid a potential severance down the road. Sometimes you in the past, you've seen where they build a second dwelling, you know, if it's a corner lot, you know, over in the back 40, quite far from the existing farm operation. And then they will come in and ask for severance after the fact. So part of the reason for the criteria and the location criteria is to avoid a potential application down the road that is not going to be supported. That's the intent of the policy. However, in this case, the applicant has asked for relief to allow it to not meet the setback or the farm cluster setback requirements and locate it closer to an existing building further up in the property. So as a result of that, the location does require we did have to do an MDS1 calculation for the surrounding livestock facilities. As you can see, this would be similar to the request from the first application. If you establish a farm dwelling on a farm, does MDS apply? And yes, it does. So in this case, it's MDS 1. So we had to do the calculations for the surrounding livestock facilities, and it ended up that the farm across the road does, their arts do impact where the house is going. So they do need relief from that livestock facility and manure facility, I believe, as well as relief from the location of the house. That's all I have.
Thank you. And both John and Cindy are here. Would either one of you wish to speak at this time or speak after if there's any questions? Okay. Okay. And anyone else attending today that wishes to speak, please go to the podium, present your name, address.
Yeah, I'll do this. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members and staff. Neil Driscoll, I'm here today representing Hensel Co-op at 7147 Side Road 12, which is the grain elevator. We don't wish to speak at all to the position of the house that's currently proposed, but we do have concerns with the existing farm cluster, because when we built our business, the people that owned that existing farm cluster had no intentions of living there forever. Our facility puts off a lot of noise, and for a new house to be built in the existing farm cluster, we feel it would make for bad neighbors. And we've lived in that community a long time and got along with our neighbors, and we'd like to keep it that way. So it's just a comment. We're not opposed to the position of the house, or we're not for it either, but we just want to make our concerns known that the noise is there and the noise can't go away. So we'd like the committee to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call upon our committee members. Member Stanners, would you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I really don't have a problem with this. I drove back the laneway there and I can see that the applicant doesn't use it on a daily basis. It would be a little leveler. As far as existing buildings, it only lists as a house and a proposed house. I just wondered whether the existing barn is coming down. And I think this all started, this application process, as soon as the shed was built out towards the road, it kind of took away from the cluster thing, right? And I have no idea who lives in the back of the house, but I really don't have any problem at all with a house being built at the front. Maybe they could share the laneway, but that's neither here nor there to me. But even agreeing with Neil Driscoll, I wouldn't want to put a big house way at the back there right beside a fertilizer plant and lots of noise. So I really don't have a problem with this one at all. I think I wouldn't be surprised if through time, if both that barn and house comes down, who knows, that's up to the applicant. And so I would be all in favor of him putting his house up at the front where he can also keep a closer eye on his shop, and that seems to be his big business right now. So I would say I would be in favor of this application. Thank you.
Member Keoma?
Once again, I guess echoing Bob, I don't really have any difficulties with the idea of this second house going up closer to the road, up to the front of the property. And certainly now hearing from the elevator operator, that makes even more sense that it would be away from that operation. So that I think I can understand why this makes a lot of sense. So that'd be my comment.
Thank you. Member Sheik.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have questions for the applicants. So are you proposing the same driveway for this new residence?
We were thinking of a different driveway, but I think we will be using our existing one.
And is there, what is the current use of the land where you're planning to build the residential dwelling?
Just agriculture use.
It
Oh. Is it, like I personally, I don't see this request as minor when I'm looking at like what the location of the second residence, like it's like a significant request, like it's not minor in my opinion. Would you, like it's to the point where I'm having problems supporting the application, would you be willing to amend or look at changing your application to at least move the house far enough closer to the new shed so that it doesn't affect the MDS? Because we're looking at two different, like one is building cluster, right, which I don't see as minor, but would it be possible to move the location of where you're wanting to build the house so that you can move it back far enough so that it's out of the MDS1 arc?
I don't know if that's possible, but we're back to the cluster. When was that built? And why was it built back there? No, I know that. So we have a cluster at the front, we have a cluster at the back. So we've chose to use the front cluster possibly, if that's allowed. And I don't know if we can, by sliding the house back, gets us far enough. I don't.
Yes.
So just looking at the drawing that's shown on the screen, it's looking like you want to build like pretty well centered between the road and the new shed. So the new shed doesn't really count as a cluster, I don't believe, but I would refer that question to the planner. A shed, is that considered a cluster, a second cluster on the property?
Through you, Chair, I'm just looking up the definition right now.
Thank
in
you.
the zoning bylaw. I'll read it out loud. Farm building cluster means the close grouping of the main buildings and structures on a farm contained within a limited area so that the remaining land is used for agriculture. Buildings and structures within the cluster shall share a common driveway. So the main grouping of buildings is considered the farm cluster. So it's not unusual for farms to have your main buildings and then maybe the odd building elsewhere. So I would say the main farm cluster in this case is at the back where the existing dwelling in the barn is.
Through you, Chair. So to the applicant, we can either make the motion as it stands, or my question is, would you be willing to amend to move your house back so that the building envelope of your new residential is not within the MDS1?
So how many feet would we have to slide the house back to fall into the regulations?
To our planner.
So I actually measured that and it would be approximately about 200 feet away out from that existing shed. So very close to the shed. Yeah, within 200 feet of that shed, it would take them outside of the MDS arc.
Through you.
Yes.
And that would be the MDS arc for both distances, both the livestock facility and the manure storage.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
So even if we slid it back some and go back to, is there any thought given to the cluster at the back of the farm? It is so outdated. The reason it was put there 200 years ago, and why was it there? Because of the railway. That was their main transportation, where the County Road 8, as we know it, was likely a dirt trail. So I think at some point in time, should we not be looking, like, what really is a cluster? In the day, that was the cluster. You're 100% right. But that is very outdated. And why would you build back there? Just a comment.
Member
Through-
Sheik?
Through you, Chair. So I'm not suggesting that you build in the cluster, but I'm suggesting if we could look at the reduction of the distance between the cluster and where you're proposing to build, right? And also taking the building envelope further from the MDS one, because it's not like it's just the farm across the road is not just like for storage, like it is an operating dairy farm. And if they want to do something, they're gonna have to, and I know it's good neighborhood, like everybody, they're good neighbors and you're good neighbors, but people sell, things move, things change, right? So you don't know where that's gonna happen down the road if they decide to do something. The other thing is that, I guess my question for you, applicant, through you, Chair, is like, are you looking to remove any of the buildings in that back building cluster? Are you taking the house down? Are you taking the barn down? Because then it wouldn't really be a cluster anymore, correct?
Absolutely. And I will guarantee you, they will come down. I mean, they're old. So I'm not saying they're gonna come down tomorrow, but it is a cluster today, but it won't be forever. Or we won't be. You know, any expansion will be not done back there, if that answers your question. And even if we move the house back 100 feet, is that enough to get us further away from the barn across the road, as I'm aware of? You know, you had said it's 200 feet. There's no happy medium there. Maybe we split it. Like, I don't know who answers those questions.
Through to our planner, if she could perhaps answer some questions.
So which questions am I answering? That was a lot. So the question about like that, moving it back somewhat. So there would still need the variance would still be required, right? So the setback to meet the MDS, you're looking at about 200 feet in front of that existing shed. So that would be compliant. So anything be closer than that, you're still going to need a variance of some kind.
Member Sheik?
So if they move the building envelope back closer to the new shed, they would still need a variance for the distance to the cluster. They would still need that variance, but if they move the shed 200 feet or closer to the new shed, they would then not require the variance for the MDS?
That's right. The variance from the setback from the house, the existing house, it's a 200 feet requirement. That's what you need. You need to build the new house within 200 feet of the existing residence. That's the criteria. So they would need that variance no matter what, unless they put it with the house. The MDS would go away if they moved it back. I was just looking up the actual, I think it's part of the package, the MDS calculations. I don't know if that was included, but you can see what the requirement, what the actual requirement is, or it's in the note, in the comments too. The distance from the livestock facility required is 1,168 feet. So, and the manure is 1,381 feet. So you measure from the manure pile and manure tank back towards Mr. Gleason's property, and then that's, you know, where the arc is, so.
Member Sheik?
So then, could we ask then that the applicants amend their application for vote on it, and then if it passes, it passes, and if it doesn't, then to amend it? Or how is that process?
If you, whatever, if you vote on it today, make it, if a decision is made today, that's the decision. And if they want to change it after the fact, they have to reapply. It's a new hearing. So
Okay, at this time, I would ask my other members to my right, how are you feeling about this? Whether we prefer, perhaps ask for a deferral for more clarification and seeing if the applicants can come back? Or do you want to proceed and have a vote? Member
To
Standers?
to the planner, through you, Chair, can we have two different things here. Can we vote on one part of it? Or do we have to vote on both parts all as one? My concern is, and looking over there at the applicant, whenever I mentioned about the old barn, and I could just see the look in his eyes, those buildings are not going to last there. If they're still there by Christmas, I would be surprised. I don't know though. But the MDS distance, we don't have a real definite area on that, but if we can vote on just approving that he doesn't have to build within that cluster, because I wouldn't want to build back there, and I don't think the lane's tough, and it's old buildings, right? You want to be out on your traveled highways now instead of a railway track. So my question is, can we vote just on one portion of this? Or does this whole application, if we say yes today, he can build near that manure pit and he can build it away from it? I just want clarification of which, can we do one or the other, or does one become both, right? Sorry.
Okay, well, so you can do whatever you want in terms of the decision you want to make. If you want to amend the request and vote on that, that's within your right to do that. But I also think the applicant should have an opportunity to advise you of his wishes too. Like if he does not want to build this house at this location unless it can be where he wants it, he might want you to make a decision as requested so that the decision is made and then he can take the next steps if he wants. He can appeal it. There's an option for him. So that's where the committee has to decide how to move forward. If you want there to be an opportunity for the applicant to maybe look at different options and what they're prepared to move forward on, then you can ask for a deferral and there can be more discussion with the staff, and then we can come back with information on what that looks like. Or the applicant can address it right here and now and tell you exactly what he wants you to make a decision on.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to call upon the applicant. Would you like us to proceed, or would you like the opportunity for a deferral?
No, I think we should proceed. I just. Yeah, we gotta know what we're doing. I think you think about it, I don't think we're asking for anything that's at all unreasonable, but I get, you guys are running the show. And I don't know, what do you say? Give her.
Okay, thank you. Any other further comments? So if I can have somebody to move our recommendation? If I don't get a mover, a seconder, I can't put it on the floor. Then we're asking for a deferral.
Can I ask one question to the owner? He's saying, let's proceed as it is. Does he want to proceed on both pieces, staying more than 200 feet away from that house and staying within the arc of the neighbor's manure pit? Or do you want to proceed with one, John, and consider that, okay, I have that approved. I don't have to build my house at the back of that farm, but I also have to keep my house away from what is it, 268 feet from livestock facility across the road, right? Do you want one, or do you want, because then, like I look at the one set of plans here and it showed one sketching you were going to be 150 by 200 feet in off the corner of this farm, right? At one time, puts it out near the road. But that puts you into the arc of that manure pit and livestock operation. So my question is, do you want us, like when we vote or proceed on this, do you want us to split this and say, hey, I just definitely don't want to be within 200 feet of that old set of buildings. I want to be up at the front, and then the MDS will give you restrictions. I have to be so many 100 feet back. And that gives you an arc of where you can actually build, and then you can look at it and measure and draw a circle in the sand and say, we got to be out front of here. No, we got to come back. Like there's two things here, and neither one is. The building at the back, I definitely think I wouldn't be back there, but can you move back far enough towards your shed or across the laneway from your shed or maybe in the bush, and you would be out of that arc? It's just, you decide, right? Tell us yes or no, and we can.
Well, I don't see us building back there, that's for sure. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I appreciate what Neil said, and it's true. You hear the truck tailgate slapping, but that's fine. I don't know. I'm not sure what is the deferral really gonna do for us? I guess what I'm struggling with.
Okay, the deferral would give the opportunity for, to go back with our planner and to get that exact measurements of the MDS one arc. So
Yep.
then you would know exactly how far it would be from your shed. And then it would give, by moving, that would decrease your ask within that cluster. So that would give us an exact amount for that also. So it would give definite numbers for the committee to consider.
So what if we just bulldoze a house? No, so there's no cluster. The cluster would disappear, correct?
Yes, there still would be the arc, the MDS arc
Oh,
from
okay,
the
so we still
existing,
got-
yes.
yeah,
So
okay, yeah,
that's the second part of it. Yes. Yes.
So if we go with the deferral, how long does this take?
Our next scheduled meeting is October 11th.
I'm not sure. we want. Well, I guess on the negative side or positive side, just vote. And I guess if you turn it down, so then we just gotta come back. Is that true?
No, as the planner had explained, and actually I will request the planner to explain that to you one more time, please.
If a decision is made tonight for refusal approval, that's, your hearing is done. So to come back, you'd have to reapply. So a deferral just puts it on hold until whatever the committee wants, you know, they would give direction on as to what they want, what information they want to come back with, and then they would proceed.
Member Sheik has comment.
I would motion that we move for deferral, and that way the committee can outline like what they're going to suggest, and you can talk with the planner so that you can get within reason what you're requesting with this minor variance. That would be my thoughts on that. Through you, planner, is any further thing you want to comment on that?
My only concern right now is member Stanners is indicating that perhaps if we could somehow separate, but I'm not comfortable on separating it without knowing exact numbers. So again, I'm leaning to a deferral so that we can have those exact numbers before us. And whether then when you are speaking with the planning department of where you're willing to give within closer of that 200 of the cluster and within outside of the MDS one arc. So I'll ask one more time. I'll give you another opportunity to speak, and then perhaps we'll make some kind of a decision here.
So you're saying you don't want to vote on the one, like about the cluster at the back of the farm and then defer the rest?
We don't have exact numbers. unless we break, and I don't know if the planning department is able to do something like that. This takes, you can appreciate it takes a lot of time in planning and to come up with the exact numbers, referring back to our zoning bylaws and everything else. So it has to be exact to be able to come to us, because then that's what further down the road, the building department will follow, everybody will follow.
I guess we'll go for the deferral then. We have no choice.
Member Stanners?
Yes, through you, Chair, I think we've all kind of agreed and chatted about the 200 feet back at the back. I think everybody in this room would agree to the same thing with Neil's suggestion. But we already have this set of numbers on here of, so many, the proposed and distance, that's the one part, but the MDS numbers, we have all them right there right now. And by approving this, they can build away from the cluster. And also they cannot build within less than this 268 feet, right? So if we tossed out this MDS stuff, then he would have to build he'd have to stay 1,168 feet away instead of wanting to be 900 feet. I don't know where these numbers come up with. Usually we see an arc on a plan and all that, right? And I don't, without going out there and stepping it off the field, I don't know where the 1168 would be and the 900 would be, right? But why can't we throw this MDS, not approve it, right? We can approve that he can build a house away from that cluster at the back of that farm.
At what distance? At what distance are we going to approve?
Well, this is going to prove that he can't be within the arc. There is enough other rules. He can be so far distance from a property line and all this and that. We know nobody's going to ever build a house at the back of that farm, right? But also then with not approving the MDS, he has to stay at least 1,168 feet away from a livestock facility, right? Then whenever he goes to apply for his permit, if he can't maintain that distance, he can start the whole process again, because I'm sure 1,168 feet from that barn puts him quite a ways back on his property there, right? I don't know where you would be with 1,160 feet, John, or 900 feet on this property.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, how far back we have to slide that house. And nowhere does it show us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
So.
yeah.
Member Kyomo, do you have
So-
something?
Can I just carry on? So even to the applicant without that exact arc, we're all standing here, we don't know. The whole bunch of us. So I think our best thing and I finally, after it's gone around the circle too many times here, we defer it until somebody develops that arc, and then it lets you know, it lets us know where you're gonna be, right? Thank you.
If I could hear from one of my members, they'd like to motion. First, Member Kyomo, motion to defer this hearing, seconded by Member Sheik. So I have a motion before me for application A 2023-2 to be deferred to define the MDS1 arc to situate the house outside of the arc and what that within the 200-meter cluster where it would fall, the house, and that the applicant and the planning department would work together. AO 203-12. Any other questions, the members? We're all good. I'll call the question. All those in favor of deferral? All those opposed? The motion is deferred until our next meeting on October the 11th. So our hearings are now concluded, and we will have the circulation of decision sheets for signing. 13th. And we do have our property standards meeting tomorrow. Hopefully I see everybody there. To my agenda. And we have upcoming hearings, definitely October the 11th. Come on, back to 4. We are still live streaming. Meeting is still adjourned. Perfect. All of the decision sheets and remuneration sheet has been signed. Like I said, we do have an upcoming hearing on October 11th. Does anyone else have anything under general business? No, okay. This meeting is adjourned at 5:23. Thank you for attending.